Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 827B, and today's date is November 25th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Government is Backed into a Corner and Preparing the Next Major Event. Now, before I get started, I have two announcements. The first announcement, for those people who are celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow, happy Thanksgiving. There will be no report on Thursday, but there will be one on Friday. My second announcement is on Thursday, Thanksgiving, I'll be uploading an interview with Rebecca Roth. She wrote two books, Methodical Illusion and Methodical Deception, and this is all about 9/11, and she digs deep into what really happened. And you can listen to those on X22 Report Spotlight, which is the YouTube channel. You can either come to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the interview on the right-hand side, or you can go to newssentinel.com and see the interview there. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, yesterday I talked about New York, about how they have this new app called See Something, Send Something. And basically, this app is in many other states than just New York. It's in Colorado, Louisiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And this was created back in 2008 by DHS. The free app is a nationwide suspicious activity reporting tool for citizens to help, fight against terrorism. But what you're not being told is who created the app. An FBI DHS front company called Mobile Witness created the app. MMW is tied at the hip to DHS and FBI. In fact, they even have a former FBI manager working for them. Former FBI manager Ronald Knight works at MMW, Law Enforcement Advisors, and they've been working with law enforcement to spy on Americans since 2008. My Mobile Witness began work with key law enforcement agencies in 2008 to implement technology connecting citizens and their cell phones to criminal intelligence centers nationwide. Now, law enforcement is saying that it is our responsibility to spy on each other and report them to authorities. And this is what we're seeing. This is a repeat of what Nazi Germany wanted to do to their people. They wanted people to tell on others who are not in line with the government narrative, those people that might be thinking other thoughts. And if there is a potential threat, you need to report it. But how do you know something is a potential threat? Because you don't know what's going on. I mean, just because you see propane or just because you see toxic material doesn't mean that this is a threat to anyone. So what they're doing is they're just taking this. They're taking all the information. They want people to point fingers at each other, and they want all this information to correlate it into a centralized database where they can sift through it, and this helps them locate those people who need to be located. And then these people then are watched. This is what this app is all about. Now, out in Ukraine, we see the power outage is still going on. Russia is looking at the situation and saying this is absolutely ridiculous, and they're devising retaliatory measures if Ukraine does not restore the electricity there. And there's about up to 2.5 million Crimeans without electric whatsoever, and they have declared a state of emergency in Crimea. And at the same time all this is happening, Yatsenyuk came out and said they're closing all flights across Ukraine. Russia air carriers will not be allowed. They're closing the airspace, which is very interesting. Ukraine has stopped the Russian gas supply. They didn't pay for any more gas coming into the country. They filled up their tanks for this winter, so they're cutting that off right now. And all of this is leading to one thing and one thing only. That is a major offensive in Ukraine. Because when we look at the situation, we see the United States government, central bankers, they are losing their proxy army forces in Syria. Their backs are against the wall. Yemen is a disaster. Libya is a disaster. Lebanon is a disaster. Iraq is a disaster. And they really wanted to get into Syria to put the dollar on the natural resources, set up a pipeline, and eventually go into Iran. All of this is not working out. So now they need to start this war all over the place, and everything is being built up right now and getting prepared for this. Now, out in Libya, France's defense minister says, listen, you must create a new government right now in Libya so we can stop the Islamic State from taking over the country. So they already have plans right now, and we knew this was coming. They are basically giving them an ultimatum. Form this new unified government where the elected government will lose all power and the puppet government will be in power, or basically we're going to send the proxy army into Libya and it will put you into war. A war like you've never seen before. This is the threat to Libya. And then the United States will try to use this to go into Libya. Now, we understand the Russian Su-24 was shot down yesterday. Turkey was trying to make excuses of why they shot it down, and we're finding out that the jet wasn't even in the airspace of Turkey at this point. And one of the pilots was rescued, and he was saying that it's impossible that we violated the airspace even for a second. We were flying at an altitude of about 6,000 meters in completely clear weather, and he said he had total control of the plane. And he said there were no warning shots, there was no visuals or anything. It came out of the blue and hit us from behind, the missile. And Russian planes, they weren't looking for an air-to-air missile hitting them because, basically Turkey was supposed to be fighting the Islamic State, and the Islamic State does not have airplanes. So they wouldn't be looking for this. And we can see right now, this really took Russia by surprise. Now, what's very interesting is Turkey says, we have a right to defend ourselves. We have the right to shoot down a plane if it's in our airspace. But Greece is out there saying, okay, you're kind of hypocritical right now because you violated our airspace 2,244 times in 2014 alone. Can you imagine what would happen if we decided to shoot down every single one of these planes? And we know that a lot of times this does happen. They give warnings, signals. They never go to the extreme of shooting down the plane. So since Russia came out with their radar showing that the plane never came in there, and also the pilot who parachuted down landed in Syria, not Turkey. Very interesting. So Turkey released a recording of the warning they were giving to the Russian pilot. And this was given from a Lebanese airline and handed over. But what's very strange about this is we have a Turkish pilot talking to a Russian pilot, and the recording is in English. So that's kind of strange. Why would they be speaking in English? They know it's an Su-24. They know it's a Russian pilot. So something is not clear here, and again, they're going to be looking at this recording to see if this really is authentic. I think they just produced this as more propaganda because Russia had the radar, and the truth is coming out right now. And Putin is saying, absolutely, the plane was brought down outside of Turkish airspace. Now, Paul Craig Roberts is out there and saying, yes, Turkey is completely lying. And he gives 3 reasons right here. And I completely agree with him, did the calculation, and he is absolutely right. One reason is that we know NATO just lies all the time. Every time they say something, it's proven to be a complete lie. The second is that Turkey claims that the Su-24 was in Turkey's airspace for 17 seconds, but only traveled 1.15 miles, which means the Su-24 was flying at stall speed. The entire Western media was too incompetent to do the basic math, he says. A third reason is that assuming Turkey's claim of a 17-second airspace violation is true, 17 seconds is not long enough for a Turkish pilot to get clearance for such a serious and reckless act as shooting down a Russian aircraft. And if the Su-24 was flying at normal speed, rather than one that would be unable to keep the aircraft aloft, the alleged airspace violation would not have been long enough to be noticed. And I completely agree with this, is that Turkey's explanation makes no sense. This was completely planned. And of course, Turkey was out there saying the following, which they gave the explanation to the UN Security Council, and it states that the morning, November 24th, two Su-24 planes, the nationality of which are unknown, have approached Turkish national airspace. The planes in question have been warned 10 times during a period of 5 minutes via emergency channel and asked to change their headings south immediately. Now, 17 seconds. How can you warn someone 10 times in 17 seconds, first of all? That makes no sense. As the Su-24 are Russian aircraft, how can Turkey not be able to identify them? And if they couldn't identify them, why did they shoot at them? What happens if it was an American plane or a French plane? I mean, this whole story makes no sense whatsoever at this point, and they are caught in another lie. So Russia has been pounding the Latakia area, driving the forces back, the Islamic State back, and Syrian government forces have gained the territory in that area. At the same time, the Turkish embassy in Moscow was pelted with stones by angry crowds who are very angry that they shot down a Russian jet plane. Russia's right now taking action where they're saying they're going to be boycotting Turkey. They might be getting rid of the pipeline. They're looking at other businesses and travel arrangements to the area. Lavrov canceled his meetings in Turkey. And now Russia's saying, listen, we're going to take this to the next step. We're not going to attack Turkey, but we're going to protect our planes. So they sent the Russian Moskva cruiser to go ahead, and it's going to be off the coast of Latakia, around that area, and it's going to provide air defense in Syria. And the Russian guided missile cruiser is equipped with Fort air defense system, similar to the S-300. And right now, they are warning that every target posing a potential threat will be destroyed. Russia is saying this was a complete planned provocation. Absolutely. And from all the evidence right now, this was to provoke Russia into starting a war. So Turkey now is sending another 20 tanks to the Syrian border. And Russia, coming from Sergei Lavrov, saying, we will not wage war with Turkey. We just want an explanation. Why did you do this? Because Putin understands. The United States, the coalition forces, Turkey, they're trying to drag Russia into a war. They want Russia to do something. And Russia says, even though the plane was downed, it will not deflect from the Syrian mission. Now, the U.S.-backed moderate terrorists, they are being pushed back and they are fleeing Syria. Intelligence sources disclosed on Wednesday that U.S.-backed militants are fleeing the coastal province of Latakia in the hundreds to save their lives after sustaining heavy death toll. The sources said that the moderate terrorist groups have not found any safe place to regroup their forces after the Syrian army took control. So right now, as we keep hearing the United States, we keep hearing the coalition forces, Francis, how they're going to attack the Islamic State, they're already being beaten. They're actually coming in now to basically defend them and go after Assad. Britain is saying they will not rule out boots on the ground to go after the Islamic State. Well, they're not needed at this point, because Russia right now has the upper hand. So what is this talk about going into Syria? This is about trying to force their way in to go after Assad and start World War III. This is what we're seeing at this point. Now, ISIS just released another propaganda video, professionally done, coming from Rita Katz, Site Intelligence. And they are saying, Russia, bring it on. Now, this makes no sense whatsoever. They're losing the battle in Syria. They're almost wiped out. The Syrian army is taking more and more territory, but the Islamic State is calling in Russia to come on and bring it? No, what's happening here is that they're using this propaganda to say, the United States, come on in. Russia, come on in. Anyone else, come on in. And you can see what's going on here. They're bringing this all together, all these opposing forces, to start World War III. This is what's happening right now. Because they want everything. This is the flashpoint right at this point. Now, as the U.S., their proxy army continually is pushed out, the moderate, which they're all the terrorists, they're all the same, are completely pushed out of the country. The United States government, their back is against the wall. They have nothing left to do. Because once the terrorists are out of the country, there's no reason for them to even be there. And they know this. They're running out of time. And they are now ready for the next event. They're preparing. They're getting ready. The propaganda is flying wild at this point. And it's just a matter of time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.